Ambassador Kyle Martinez stood in the grand chamber of the Galactic Assembly and watched the emergency broadcast screens flicker to life around him. Burning human colonies lit up the darkness of space while rescue ships tried desperately to reach survivors. The council chairman Vexter stepped forward, his scaled face showing what looked like deep concern. Though Martinez had learned to read the subtle signs of deception in the Zelthian leaders' expressions, members of the assembly, Vexter began, his voice carrying through the translation system to reach every species present. We face a crisis that threatens galactic peace. Humanity has attacked 3 peaceful research outposts without warning or provocation. Martinez felt his jaw tighten but kept his face neutral. He had received encrypted messages from Captain Lisa Brennan just hours before these so-called attacks happened, and he knew the truth was far different from what the Council claimed. The screens shifted to show damaged alien stations, their outer hulls torn open by what the Council identified as human weapons fire. Casualty reports scrolled past in multiple languages while timestamps claimed to prove Earth fired first. These attacks, Vexter continued, represent the worst violation of galactic law in 3 centuries. Humanity has shown its true nature as an aggressive species willing to destroy others for expansion. The other ambassadors murmured among themselves, some with shock and others with what looked like satisfaction. Martinez noticed how the Corthan delegation nodded along with particular enthusiasm, and he remembered their recent trade disputes with human merchants. Commander Greg Patterson leaned close to Martinez and whispered, "Sir, these timestamps are wrong. Our ships weren't even in those sectors when they claimed the attacks happened." Martinez nodded slightly but said nothing yet. Speaking now without absolute proof would only make him look desperate. And the Council had clearly prepared this moment with great care. Dr. Sophie Grant sat in the science section of the chamber, her face pale as she watched her colleagues from other species turn away from her. She had worked with many of them for years on biological research, but now they looked at her like she carried some dangerous disease. The presentation continued with more evidence, each piece carefully constructed to show human aggression. Intercepted communications that claimed Earth Command ordered the strikes, ship logs that supposedly proved premeditation, and witness statements from aliens who said they barely escaped human weapons. Martinez knew Captain Brennan well enough to trust her judgment completely. They had served together during the border conflicts years ago, back when humanity was still proving itself worthy of galactic membership. And she had never been the type to fire without overwhelming reason. The encrypted message she sent had been brief but clear. Council staging weapons at Keller Outpost, capable of planetary destruction. Earth is the target. Had to act. Sorry, Kyle. He had tried to reach her again, but all communications with the ESS Defiance had been cut off. Now the Council claimed her ship attacked without orders, that she had gone rogue and dragged humanity into a war nobody wanted. The Assembly must vote on immediate sanctions, Vexter declared, pulling Martinez from his thoughts. Humanity must be contained before more innocent lives are lost. Martinez stood up, knowing this might be his only chance to speak before the vote. Every eye in the chamber turned toward him, some filled with anger and others with pity. "Chairman, fellow ambassadors," he began, keeping his voice steady despite the rage burning in his chest. "I ask for one thing before this vote. Allow us to present our own evidence and timeline of these events." Vexter's expression hardened, the false concern dropping away to reveal something colder underneath. "Ambassador Martinez, your request is denied. The evidence speaks clearly enough without human propaganda to muddy the truth. Then you leave me no choice," Martinez replied, his hand moving toward the data device in his pocket. But before he could activate it, Council security forces surrounded him, their weapons drawn but not quite aimed at him yet. "Remove the human ambassador from the chamber," Vexter ordered, his tone now showing open contempt. and begin proceedings to expel all human diplomats from council stations. Patterson moved to stand beside Martinez, his hand near his side-on. "Sir, we can fight our way out, get you to the human quarter where they can't touch you." Martinez shook his head slightly. Starting a gunfight in the assembly would only prove the council's claims about human violence. And that was exactly what Vexter wanted him to do. Stand down. "Commander," he said quietly, allowing the security forces to escort him toward the exit. "This isn't over yet." As they walked through the corridors, Martinez could hear the assembly voting behind them. He didn't need to stay to know how it would go. The council had prepared this too well. And fear would drive most species to support the sanctions. They placed him in diplomatic detention, which was supposed to be a comfortable apartment where he could await transport back to Earth. But Martinez knew it was really a prison designed to keep him silent while the council consolidated its victory. Patterson paced the small living area like a caged animal. They can't get away with this. The whole galaxy will know they lied eventually. Eventually might be too late, Martinez replied, moving to the window that showed the vast expanse of the council station. If they move fast enough, they can isolate Earth completely and then claim we're too dangerous to contact. His personal comm device vibrated with an incoming message, though it should have been disabled by the detention protocols. Martinez looked at Patterson with surprise before carefully opening the encrypted file. The message came from an unknown source, but contained raw sensor data from multiple commercial vessels that had been near Keller Outpost. The timestamps showed Council military ships positioning themselves hours before the supposed human attack. And the weapon signatures didn't match human technology at all. "Someone wants us to know the truth," Patterson said, reading over Martinez's shoulder. "But who would risk helping us now?" Martinez didn't answer immediately. He was too busy analyzing the data and realizing it showed something even worse than he had imagined. The Council hadn't just framed humanity for aggression. They had planned to attack Earth first and make it look like self-defense. The weapon systems at Keller Outpost were designed for one purpose: destroying populated planets from long range. If Captain Brennan hadn't disabled them, billions of humans would have died while the galaxy watched and believed Earth somehow deserved it. "We need to get this to Rachel Kim," Martinez said finally, referring to the independent journalist who had exposed council corruption before. "She has the reach to spread this, even if they try to suppress it." Patterson nodded and began working on routing the message through various encrypted channels. "It'll take time, and there's no guarantee it'll reach her before they shut down all our communications. Then we buy time however we can," Martinez replied, his mind already working through various scenarios and plans. The door to their detention quarters suddenly opened and Dr. Grant stepped inside, her eyes wide with fear but also determination. "I'm not supposed to be here," she said quickly, "but I needed to tell you something. Some of my colleagues are asking questions about the evidence, and they're being silenced by council security." Martinez gestured for her to sit down, grateful for this small piece of good news. "Which species?" "The Threenix mostly," Grant explained, "and a few independent scientists from smaller alliances. They're saying the casualty reports don't match the damage shown in the images, and the weapon signatures are inconsistent with known human technology." "Can they speak publicly?" Patterson asked. Grant shook her head. "Council Chairman Vexter declared martial law in all human sectors and extended it to anyone questioning the official narrative. He's calling it temporary security measures. But everyone knows what it really means." Martinez felt the weight of what was happening settle fully on his shoulders. The Council wasn't just lying about Earth's actions. They were systematically suppressing anyone who might expose those lies. And that meant this went deeper than a simple frame job. "How long do we have before they ship us back to Earth?" he asked Grant. "Maybe 2 days," she replied. "They're processing expulsion orders for all human diplomatic staff across the galaxy. You're just the first because you were in the assembly. 2 days to prove humanity's innocence and expose a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of galactic government. Martinez had faced impossible odds before, but never with the fate of his entire species hanging in the balance. He looked at the data still, displayed on his device, and made a decision. If the Council wanted to paint Earth as violent and aggressive, maybe it was time to show them what real human determination looked like, not through weapons, but through the truth that no amount of lies could completely bury. 3 days before the Council accused humanity of aggression, Captain Lisa Brennan stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiance and watched her tactical display light up with sensor alerts. Something was very wrong near the Keller outpost, and her instincts told her to investigate before reporting to Earth Command. "Lieutenant Wright, what am I looking at?" she asked her tactical officer. Keeping her voice calm, even as her pulse quickened, Lieutenant Danny Wright worked his console with practiced efficiency, his young face growing more concerned with each passing second. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures coming from Keller. They're not consistent with a research station." The Keller outpost was supposed to be a peaceful scientific facility where multiple species studied spatial phenomena. Brennan had passed by it dozens of times during patrol routes and never saw anything unusual. But now her sensors painted a very different picture. "Take us closer, but keep us outside their detection range," she ordered. Moving to stand behind Wright's station, "I want to know what they're hiding." Engineer Amy Peterson called up from the engine room through the comm system. "Captain, if we get much closer, they'll definitely spot our energy signature. These old patrol ships weren't built for stealth. Do your best." "Amy," Brennan replied, trusting her engineer to work miracles, as she always did. "I have a bad feeling about this." Science Officer Kevin Shaw pulled up detailed scans on the main screen, and everyone on the bridge went silent. Keller Outpost wasn't just a research station anymore. It had been transformed into a military installation bristling with weapons that could glass entire planets from orbit. "Those are planet killers," Wright said quietly, his hand instinctively moving toward the weapons controls. "I've never seen anything that powerful outside of military war games." Brennan felt ice settle in her stomach. The Council had strict regulations against weapons of mass destruction. Regulations they enforced ruthlessly on every member species. Yet here was a Council facility armed with enough firepower to commit genocide. "Shaw, start recording everything," she ordered. "And see if you can intercept their communications. I want to know who authorized this." Shaw worked quickly, his fingers dancing across multiple screens as he filtered through various encrypted channels. What he found made the situation infinitely worse. "Captain, you need to hear this," he said, routing the audio to the bridge speakers. The conversation was in Zelthian, the language of Council Chairman Vex their species. But the translation software made it clear enough. "Weapons will be operational in 48 hours. Earth's core colonies are. Targeted simultaneous strikes will eliminate their population centers before they can respond. Make it look like expansion gone wrong." Brennan felt the blood drain from her face. They weren't just building weapons. They were planning to use them to wipe out billions of humans and frame it as something else entirely. "My God," Wright whispered, his face pale in the blue light of his console. "They're planning to kill us all." Peterson's voice came through the comm again, shaky now. "Captain, I'm picking up multiple Council warships on approach. They'll be here in 20 minutes. Brennan's mind raced through the options available to her. She could retreat and report to Earth Command, but that would take at least 2 days to mobilize a response. And by then the weapons would be ready to fire. She could stay and gather more evidence. But the approaching warships would either destroy the Defiance or capture her crew. And the proof would die with them, where she could do what every instinct told her was necessary, but what history would condemn her for. Strike first and disable those weapons before they could murder her species. Right. I need firing solutions on those weapon platforms, she said, her voice steady despite the weight of what she was about to do. Peterson. Divert all available power to shields and weapons. Wright turned to look at her, understanding and horror mixing on his face. Captain, if we fire on a council facility, we'll be starting a war. They already started it, Brennan replied, gesturing to the intercepted communications still playing on repeat. We just don't know it yet, and if we don't stop those weapons now, there won't be anyone left on Earth to fight back. She moved to her command chair and opened a direct channel to Admiral Helen Cruz at Earth Command. The transmission would take hours to reach her, but Brennan needed someone in authority to know why she made this choice. Admiral Cruz. This is Captain Brennan of the ESS Defiance. She began, choosing her words carefully. I'm about to engage a council military installation at Keller Outpost. They have planet-killing weapons aimed at Earth's core colonies and plan to fire in 48 hours. She paused, looking at her crew, who all watched her with a mixture of fear and trust. They knew what she was asking of them, and they knew there was no going back from this moment. I'm transmitting all evidence to you now, she continued. But I can't wait for orders. By the time you receive this, those weapons will either be disabled or my crew will be dead. Brennan out. Wright had his firing solutions ready, targeting the massive energy cores that powered the planet killers. Captain, I have clean shots on all 3 platforms. Minimal chance of civilian casualties, if we're precise. Then be precise, Brennan ordered, her hand hovering over the authorization panel. All weapons. Fire on my mark. The Defiant shuddered as its main railguns fired in sequence, sending projectiles at near-light speed toward their targets. The bridge crew watched in tense silence as the shots crossed the distance and found their marks. With devastating accuracy, explosions bloomed across Keller Outpost as the weapon platforms tore apart, their energy cores destabilizing and venting into space. Secondary explosions followed as ammunition stores cooked off. But the research sections of the station remained intact. Direct hits on all 3 platforms, Wright reported, allowing himself a small smile. Weapons are completely destroyed, but Shaw's expression remained grim as he monitored the tactical situation. Captain, those council warships are changing course. They're accelerating toward us and charging weapons. Peterson. Get us out of here, Brennan ordered. Best possible speed. The Defiance's engines flared to life, pushing the aging patrol ship to its limits as they tried to escape before the council vessels arrived. But Brennan knew they had maybe minutes before those warships reached weapons range. Captain, I'm detecting something, Shaw said urgently, his eyes fixed on his scanners. The council ships are deploying something at the outpost. Looks like they're staging the wreckage. Brennan pulled up his feet on her command screen and watched in growing horror as council crews began moving debris, altering the damage patterns to make it look like the human attack had targeted civilian sections. Instead of just the weapons, they were creating evidence, building the narrative that would condemn Earth before anyone could hear the truth. Brennan had just given them exactly what they needed to turn the galaxy against humanity. They planned this, Wright said, realization dawning on his face. They knew we'd have to stop those weapons, and they were waiting for us to do it. So we walked right into their trap, Brennan replied bitterly, watching the council warships grow larger on her tactical display. But at least Earth is safe. Those weapons can't kill our families now. Energy beams lanced past the Defiance as the council ships opened fire. Peterson threw the ship into evasive maneuvers that made the artificial gravity strain to compensate. But some shots still found their mark, shields holding at 60%. Wright reported as the ship shook from another hit. But we can't take much more of this. Shaw worked frantically at his station, copying all their sensor logs and evidence onto multiple encrypted data cores. "Captain, I'm sending these out on every frequency I can. Someone has to know what really happened here." Brennan nodded, knowing their chances of survival were dropping by the second. "Make sure Ambassador Martinez gets a copy. He'll know what to do with it." Another salvo of weapons fire struck the Defiance, this time penetrating the weakened shields and tearing into the hull. Alarms blared as atmosphere vented from damaged sections, and the lights flickered. "We're not going to make it to the jump point," Peterson said. Her voice strained as she fought to keep the dying ship moving forward. "Engines are failing." Brennan looked at her crew. These people who had followed her into this impossible situation without hesitation, and felt a surge of pride mixed with grief. They had saved billions of lives, but the galaxy would never know it. "Then we make sure the truth survives, even if we don't," she said firmly, initiating the emergency beacon protocol that would broadcast their evidence continuously until the ship's power died. The ESS Defiance limped away from Keller Outpost, trailing debris in atmosphere, while Council warships circled like predators. Behind them, the stage wreckage would tell a lie that would echo across the galaxy, but somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the truth was spreading through countless encrypted channels, waiting for someone brave enough to expose it. Claire Henderson sat in the dimly lit data analysis room of Station Meridian and stared at her screen with growing confusion. Something about the Council's timeline didn't match the commercial traffic logs. She was reviewing for routine quality control. She was just a junior analyst, responsible for making sure shipping manifests matched actual vessel movements through this sector. But her eye for detail had caught something the Council probably hoped no one would notice. The timestamps on the official Council report claimed human ships attacked Keller Outpost at 14:37 station time, but Henderson's logs showed 3 Council military cruisers passing through this sector at 9:15 that same morning, heading directly toward Keller with their transponders barely visible. Military vessels didn't travel with quiet transponders unless they wanted to avoid being tracked. And they certainly didn't position themselves near supposedly peaceful research stations hours before attacks happened there. Henderson pulled up more data, cross-referencing every vessel movement in the region for the past week. The pattern became clearer with each new log file she opened. Council military had been staging forces around Keller for days before the incident. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered to herself, reaching for her coffee and finding it had gone cold hours ago. Her colleague Victor had left for the night, which meant she was alone in the analysis section. That was probably good, because what she was discovering could get her in serious trouble if the wrong people found out. She created an encrypted file of the discrepancies and tried to send it to her supervisor. But the message bounced back with an error code she had never seen before. Apparently, the Council had locked down communications about anything related to Keller or Earth. Henderson felt a chill run down her spine. She was just a data analyst who liked numbers and patterns, not someone who got involved in galactic politics. But now she held evidence that could prove the Council was lying about the entire situation. She needed help from someone who understood what this meant and had the resources to do something about it. Her mind went to Jake Morrison, a human freighter captain who often stopped at Meridian to refuel and who had mentioned seeing unusual Council activity near the border zones. Finding his current location took some creative searching through shipping databases. But Henderson finally tracked his vessel to a commercial dock on the far side of the station. She copied her files onto a physical data drive and headed out, trying to look casual despite the fear churning in her stomach. The corridors of Meridian were unusually empty for this hour, and Henderson noticed more Council security patrols than normal. They watched everyone who passed with suspicious eyes, paying special attention to any humans they encountered. She found Morrison's ship, the Steady Hand, docked in Bay 17. The freighter was old, but well-maintained, showing the care of a captain who treated his vessel like family. Morrison himself was outside the ship, checking cargo containers with a handheld scanner. He was a stocky man in his 50s with gray hair and the weathered face of someone who had spent decades in space. "Captain Morrison?" Henderson called out, trying to keep her voice steady. He looked up with a friendly smile that faded when he saw her expression. "You look like someone who just found a body in the cargo hold. What's wrong?" Henderson glanced around to make sure they were alone before pulling out the data drive. "I work in traffic analysis, and I found something about the Keller incident. The Council's timeline doesn't match the actual ship movements." Morrison's expression became serious as he took the drive and plugged it into his scanner. His eyes widened as he reviewed the data, and he let out a low whistle. "I knew something was off," he said quietly. "I was hauling medical supplies through that sector 2 days before the attack, and I saw at least 5 Council warships positioning themselves near Keller. At the time, I thought they were just conducting exercises." "Did you report it?" Henderson asked. Morrison shook his head. "Freighter captains learn not to ask, too. Many questions about military movements. It's bad for business. But now I'm thinking I should have said something." He copied the data to his own secure storage and handed the drive back to Henderson. "We need to get this to someone who can actually do something with it. Rachel Kim?" Henderson recognized the name. Kim was an independent journalist who had exposed Council corruption before and barely avoided being arrested for it. But she had the kind of reach that could spread information across the galaxy. "I know of her," Henderson replied, "but I don't know how to contact her. All the normal communication channels are being monitored." "Leave that to me," Morrison said with a slight smile. "Freighters have ways of passing messages that don't go through official channels. Comes in handy when you're trying to avoid tariff inspectors." He led Henderson into his ship and sat down at a communication console that looked far more sophisticated than what most cargo vessels carried. Within minutes, he had established a connection through a series of relay points that would be almost impossible to trace. Rachel Kim's face appeared on the screen. Suspicious at first, but becoming interested as Morrison explained what they had found. She was younger than Henderson expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes that seemed to analyze everything instantly. "Send me everything," Kim said without hesitation. "And I mean everything: logs, timestamps, ship registrations, any visual records you have." Henderson transferred the files while Morrison added his own testimony about the Council ships he had witnessed. Kim reviewed the data with the speed of someone who had spent years sorting truth from propaganda. "This is good," she said finally, her expression grim. "This is really good. It doesn't prove the Council planned the whole thing, but it definitely shows their official timeline is a lie. Can you broadcast it?" Morrison asked. Kim hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I can try, but they'll jam me the moment I go public. I'll get maybe 2 minutes of airtime before they shut me down and probably arrest me. 2 minutes might be enough," Henderson said quietly, thinking about how fast information could spread once it was out in the open. If other people start asking questions, they can't silence everyone. "You're braver than you look," Kim said with a hint of approval. Most analysts would have deleted this data and pretended they never saw it. Henderson felt her face flush. "I just want the truth to come out. People are making decisions based on lies, and it's wrong." Over the next few hours, Kim worked on crafting a report that would pack maximum impact into minimum time. She interviewed Morrison on camera about his sighting of the Council warships and had Henderson explain the timeline discrepancies in simple terms that anyone could understand. Meanwhile, Henderson kept monitoring the station's communication networks and noticed something alarming. Council security was systematically interrogating human residents and confiscating any data storage devices. They're looking for something," she told Morrison. "Or maybe they're looking for someone. Either way, we're running out of time." Morrison checked his ship's systems. "I can launch in 20 minutes if I skip the full pre-flight once we're in open space. They'll have a harder time stopping the broadcast. But before they could finalize their plans, Kim discovered something new while reviewing the data Henderson had sent. There's another layer here. The weapon signatures from Keller don't match human technology at all. She pulled up side-by-side comparisons on her screen. I covered the border conflicts years ago, and I know what human weapons look like when they fire. These signatures are wrong. They're too powerful and the energy dispersion patterns don't match. Henderson felt hope surge in her chest. So the Council faked the weapons fire too? Or they used their own weapons and blamed it on Earth, Kim replied, her fingers flying across her keyboard as she documented this new evidence. Either way, it proves the whole attack was staged. An alarm suddenly blared on Morrison's ship, and he cursed under his breath. Station security is requesting permission to board for a random inspection. I'm betting it's not random. Henderson looked at Kim's image on the screen. You need to broadcast now, before they confiscate everything. Kim nodded and began routing her report through every independent news network she had access to. Her face appeared simultaneously on dozens of screens across multiple star systems. As she began speaking, this is Rachel Kim with breaking. Evidence about the Keller outpost. Incident. The Council's official timeline contains major discrepancies that suggest. Her broadcast cut off abruptly as Council jammers activated. But Henderson saw confirmation that at least part of the message had reached several networks before the shutdown. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Morrison's ship shuddered as magnetic clamps locked onto its hull from the station. They're forcing us to stay docked, Henderson. You need to get out of here before they connect you to this. But Henderson shook her head. I'm already connected. They can trace my data access running. Now would just make me look guilty. The ship's airlock cycled open and Council security forces stormed in, their weapons raised. The lead officer, a Corthan with sergeant insignia, pointed at Henderson and Morrison. You're both under arrest for unauthorized access to classified information and conspiracy to spread false propaganda, he announced. Pulling out restraint devices as they bound her hands, Henderson looked at. Ambassador Kyle Martinez stood in his detention quarters and watched the complete data package finish downloading to his secure device. Whoever had compiled this evidence had done remarkable work, connecting pieces from multiple sources into an undeniable pattern of deception. Commander Patterson stood beside him, studying the information with the tactical mind of a soldier who understood what they were looking at. Sir, this proves everything. The Council staged the entire incident to justify attacking Earth. Martinez nodded slowly, his mind already working through the implications and the risks. The question is, how do we present this without getting shut down before anyone sees it? Dr. Grant, who had been helping them secretly for the past day, pulled up schematics of the assembly chamber on her tablet. There's a way to override the main broadcast system if you can get to the central control node. It's designed so any member species can force an emergency announcement in case of invasion or disaster. The Council will try to stop me the moment they realize what I'm doing, Martinez said, tracing the path from the detention area to the assembly on Grant's display. Then we create a distraction, Patterson replied with a grim smile. Something big enough that their security has to split focus. Grant looked uncertain. What kind of distraction are you thinking? Patterson's smile widened slightly. Let's just say I've made friends with some engineers who aren't happy about the communications. Locked down, they can create some very interesting technical malfunctions in critical systems. Martinez appreciated the plan, but knew it was risky for everyone involved. If this goes wrong, the Council will use it as more evidence of human aggression. And if we do nothing, Patterson countered, they'll continue lying until the galaxy believes. Earth deserves whatever they're planning next. The decision weighed heavily on Martinez, but he knew Patterson was right. Sometimes the only way forward was to force the truth into the open. Regardless of the personal cost, make your arrangements, he said finally. We move in 2 hours. that gives me time to review all this evidence and decide how to present it most effectively. The next 2 hours passed in focused preparation. Martinez studied every piece of data until he could recite the timeline from memory, while Patterson coordinated with his network of sympathetic station personnel. Dr. Grant used her scientific credentials to move freely around the station, quietly warning other researchers about what was coming. Several alien scientists who had worked with humans for years began asking their own governments to demand transparency from the Council when the time came. Martinez dressed in his formal diplomatic uniform and checked his data device one last time. The evidence was complete, undeniable, and damning. The Council had planned genocide and then framed Earth for defending itself. Patterson had arranged for a maintenance crew to trigger cascading power failures in the non-essential sections of the station. It wouldn't cause real danger, but it would pull security forces away from the assembly chamber to deal with panicking civilians. "Ready, sir?" Patterson asked, his hand resting on his side. Martinez took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be. Let's go expose some lies." They left the detention quarters during a shift change, moving quickly through corridors that Patterson had memorized during his time on the station. The power failures began right on schedule, causing confusion and drawing security away from their route. They reached the assembly chamber just as an emergency session was beginning. Council Chairman Vexter was calling for a vote on military action against Earth's outer colonies. Claiming humanity was preparing more attacks, Martinez strode through the entrance before anyone could stop him. His diplomatic credentials, still technically valid since the formal expulsion, hadn't been processed yet. The assembled ambassadors turned to stare as he walked toward the central platform. "Chairman Vexter," Martinez called out, his voice carrying through the vast chamber. "I invoke my right as a member ambassador to present evidence of conspiracy and fraud." Vexter's scaled face darkened with anger. "You have been removed from this chamber security. Escort the human out immediately." But Martinez was already at the control node, his fingers moving across the interface with practiced speed. Grant's instructions had been perfect, and within seconds, he had overridden the system. Every screen in the assembly chamber lit up with the evidence. Traffic logs showing Council warships positioning themselves before the attack. Intercepted communications revealing the plan to destroy Earth's colonies. Weapon signature analysis proving the Council staged their own stations to look like human aggression. "The Council lied to everyone," Martinez announced, his voice now broadcasting across multiple star systems through the Assembly's official channels. "They built weapons to commit genocide against humanity, and then framed us for defending ourselves." The chamber erupted in chaos as ambassadors shouted questions and demands. Some rushed toward the exits, while others crowded around the displays. Trying to verify what they were seeing, Vexter attempted to shut down the broadcast, but Patterson had disabled the override controls. The truth was flowing out to billions of viewers across the galaxy, and there was no way to stop it now. "These are fabrications," Vexter shouted, but his voice lacked conviction. The evidence was too detailed, too well documented to dismiss easily. Martinez pulled up Captain Brennan's final transmission, her face appearing on every screen as she explained her impossible choice. "I'm about to engage a Council military installation at Keller Outpost. They have planet-killing weapons aimed at Earth's core colonies and plan to fire in 48 hours. The recording showed the weapons platforms, the intercepted attack plans, the countdown to genocide. Brennan's voice remained steady even as her ship took fire, even as she knew she might not survive. "We struck first," Martinez said quietly, letting the words sink in. "But we struck to save 15 billion innocent lives from weapons the Council claimed they would never allow to exist." An ambassador from the Thrinix Confederation stood up, his multiple arms gesturing emphatically. "I demand an independent investigation if these charges are true. The Council has violated every principle we claim to uphold." Others joined his call. Species who had long chafed under Council dominance, now seeing an opportunity to demand accountability. The chamber split between those defending the Council and those demanding. Truth Admiral Helen Cruz appeared on the main screen via secure transmission from Earth. Her military uniform immaculate, despite the obvious stress she was under. The Council can verify every piece of evidence Ambassador Martinez has presented: ship logs, sensor data, communications intercepts, all available for independent review. She paused, letting her next words carry full weight. Earth acted in self-defense against imminent genocide. We will not apologize for refusing to die quietly. Vexter attempted to regain control of the situation. Even if humans believed they faced a threat, attacking first is a violation of galactic law. Galactic law requires good faith between members, interrupted Ambassador Torvin of the Threenix. But the Council acted in bad faith by building weapons of mass destruction and planning to use them. This invalidates any claims you might make about legality. Martinez saw his opening. The question before this assembly is simple. Do we live in a galaxy where truth matters, or one where the powerful can lie without consequence? More ambassadors stood to speak, some supporting Earth and others trying to defend the Council position. But Martinez noticed something important. Even those defending the Council were doing so half-heartedly, as if they knew the evidence was too strong to fully deny Rachel. Kim's face appeared on several screens as her full report finally broke through the jamming. She had compiled interviews with commercial pilots who witnessed Council movements, analysis from independent scientists questioning the weapon signatures, and testimony from aliens who worked at Keller before it became a military base. The cover-up extends beyond just the attack. Kim reported, Council security has been arresting anyone who questions the official narrative, including 2 humans who uncovered timeline discrepancies. The image shifted to show Claire Henderson and Jake Morrison in Council detention, both looking defiant despite their restraints. Their story of discovering the truth through simple data analysis resonated with viewers who understood how determined someone had to be to dig that deep. Martinez watched the assembly divide before his eyes. Some species were calling for the Council leadership to resign, others for a complete restructuring of galactic government, and a few were already withdrawing their delegations in protest. Dr. Grant appeared at his side, slightly out of breath. Several alien scientists are releasing their own analysis supporting your evidence. They're saying the casualty reports were mathematically impossible given the actual damage shown. Patterson joined them, his expression satisfied. Earth's fleet is mobilizing, not for war, but to make sure the Council knows we won't go quietly if they try again. Vexter's last attempt to control the narrative fell flat as more species demanded his removal. I acted to protect the galaxy from a dangerous species. You acted to maintain power. Torvin cut him off sharply. And you were willing to murder billions to do it. There is no defense for that. Martinez felt the weight lift slightly from his shoulders. The truth was out, undeniable and spreading. And while 6 weeks after the truth emerged, Captain Lisa Brennan stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest orbital station and watched the largest gathering of alien vessels in human space that had ever occurred. They weren't here to threaten. They were here to witness the ESS. Defiance had survived its encounter with Council warships, though barely. Brennan and her crew spent 2 weeks in emergency medical care before they were well enough to speak publicly about what happened. Now she wore her dress uniform with new commendations from 17 different species. Medals that represented something more important than military achievement. They represented the moment when the galaxy stopped seeing humans as either victims or aggressors and started seeing them as something far more unsettling. Admiral Cruz approached her with a slight smile. Nervous about the demonstration? Brennan shook her head. We're not demonstrating weapons. We're demonstrating restraint. That's scarier. Cruz understood exactly what she meant. Earth had spent the past 6 weeks showing the galaxy technological capabilities they had kept secret. Not because humans were planning conquest, but because they understood the importance of maintaining defensive advantages. The new human ships were faster than anything the Council had, their shields stronger, their weapons more precise. Earth scientists had made breakthroughs in multiple fields while the rest of the galaxy assumed humans were still catching up. They expected us to retaliate, Cruz said quietly, watching the alien vessels maintain careful distance from Earth's defensive perimeter. And when we didn't, it scared them more than any attack would have. Ambassador Martinez had spent those same 6 weeks building a new coalition of species who wanted to replace the Council's authority with something based on transparency and mutual defense. The Threenix Confederation had been first to join, followed rapidly by 16 other species alliances. The old Council still existed technically, but Vexler and his co-conspirators were under arrest by their own governments. The Zelthian people had been horrified to learn what their leaders planned, and their new representatives were working hard to rebuild trust. Martinez appeared on the observation deck, looking more relaxed than Brennan had seen him in months. The last delegates just arrived. We can begin whenever you're ready. Admiral Cruz nodded and activated the station-wide communication system. To all vessels present, thank you for accepting Earth's invitation. What you're about to witness is not a threat, but a promise. The demonstration began with a simple display of speed. 3 human destroyers accelerated to velocities that made the alien observers check their sensors twice to confirm the readings were accurate. Then came the weapons test, targeting a series of unmanned asteroids at various distances. Human railguns and energy weapons destroyed their targets with precision. That would have been impossible with older technology. But the most impressive part came when a mock enemy fleet approached the human defensive perimeter. The automated defense systems locked onto every vessel simultaneously, showing that Earth could track and engage hundreds of targets at once if necessary. We developed these capabilities quietly, Cruz explained to the assembled audience. Not because we planned aggression, but because we learned from history that being unprepared invites attack. She paused, letting the implications sink in for every species watching. The Council feared what humanity might become. They were right to fear, but wrong about the reason. Martinez took over the broadcast. Earth could have responded to the genocide attempt with overwhelming force. We could have struck Council worlds, destroyed their military infrastructure, made them pay for every life they planned to take. The alien observers waited in tense silence for what came next. But we chose a different path. Martinez continued. We chose to prove our strength through restraint, to show that humanity's greatest danger isn't our weapons, but our refusal to abuse power the way the Council did. Brennan watched the faces of alien diplomats on multiple video feeds. She saw fear transform into something else, respect mixed with uncertainty. The recognition that they were dealing with a species that played by different rules. Claire Henderson had been released from Council detention after the truth came out, and she now worked as Earth's chief liaison for intelligence sharing with allied species. Her natural talent for finding patterns in data made her invaluable in the new political landscape. Jake Morrison's freighter had become the flagship of an independent merchant fleet that connected reform-minded worlds. He transported not just cargo but also information, helping smaller species bypass the old Council's communication monopolies. Dr. Grant continued her scientific work, but now she led joint human-alien research teams exploring questions that benefited everyone. The spirit of cooperation she fostered became a model for the new galactic framework Martinez was building. Rachel Kim had won awards from journalism organizations across multiple species for her role in exposing the truth. She used her increased influence to continue investigating corruption wherever it hid. The demonstration concluded with Earth's orbital defense platforms powering down, showing they could activate overwhelming force instantly, but chose not to keep it active constantly. The galaxy trembled when Earth struck first, Admiral Cruz said in closing. And they trembled again when they learned what we could have done but didn't. An alien ambassador from a species Brennan didn't recognize requested permission to speak. Cruz granted it, curious about what would be said. I came here expecting to see humanity flex its military strength, the ambassador admitted. But instead, you showed us something more frightening: discipline. He gestured to the now quiet weapons platforms. Any species can build powerful weapons if they dedicate enough resources, but having the wisdom to use them only when absolutely necessary, and the strength to stop when others would seek revenge, that's rare. Other ambassadors murmured agreement. The galaxy had seen plenty of aggressive species throughout history, but they rarely encountered one that combined strength with genuine restraint. Martinez saw his opportunity to drive the point home. The reformed Galactic Assembly we're proposing isn't based on human dominance. It's based on the principle that truth and justice matter more than power. The Threenix ambassador stood to add his voice. We support Earth's proposal because humanity proved they meant what they said. They struck first to save lives, not to conquer, and they stopped when the threat was eliminated. Over the following hours, more species pledged to join the new framework. Some did so enthusiastically while others joined reluctantly. But all recognized that the old system had failed and something different was needed. Brennan found herself surrounded by well-wishers from multiple species, all wanting to thank her for making the hardest choice. You saved my colony, a young Corthan officer told her, tears in his multiple eyes. My family lived in the evacuation zone that would have been destroyed if those weapons fired. She hadn't known that. Hadn't realized the Council's plan would have killed not just humans, but also the aliens living in nearby systems. The realization made her feel slightly less guilty about firing first. I just did what needed doing, she replied quietly. Anyone else would have made the same choice. But the Corthan officer shook his head. Many would have hesitated, or tried to find another way, or waited for orders. You acted when action was needed. And billions of us are alive because of it. Commander Greg Patterson watched the diplomatic proceedings with satisfaction. He had helped Martinez orchestrate this moment. Ensuring Earth demonstrated strength without arrogance. Lieutenant Danny Wright and Engineer Amy Peterson both received promotions and new postings to ships that would patrol the reformed defensive network. Science Officer Kevin Shaw became an instructor, teaching the next generation of human officers about the importance of gathering evidence and documenting truth. The crew of the Defiance would never forget what happened at Keller Outpost, but they could at least take pride in knowing they made the right choice, even when it was impossibly hard. As the demonstration concluded and alien vessels began departing, Martinez joined Brennan and Cruz on the observation deck. The galaxy will never look at humanity the same way again. Is that good or bad? Brennan asked. Martinez considered the question carefully. Both. Probably they fear us, but they also respect us. And respect is something you can build on. Cruz pulled up reports from Earth's intelligence services. The old Council factions are trying to regroup, claiming we manipulated the evidence and that humanity is still dangerous. Let them try, Martinez replied with confidence. We have something they never did: the truth. And enough species who witnessed it firsthand that lies won't work anymore. The reforms would take years to fully implement. Old power structures didn't collapse overnight, and many species remained suspicious of human intentions, despite the evidence. But the crucial shift had occurred. Earth had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't firepower or technology. It was the moral courage to use violence only when absolutely necessary, and the wisdom to stop when the threat ended. The galaxy had trembled in fear when they learned Earth struck first. anticipating savage retaliation and endless warfare. Instead, they witnessed something that frightened them even more, a species that could destroy its enemies completely.